The obvious thing to do is to create brand new content for your website, either by writing it yourself or paying someone else. And as explained in earlier videos, you should certainly pluck the low-hanging fruit, the content just waiting to be used. But where else can you find content for your website? There are many ways to find content, as you'll see in this lesson. The ideas that I'll discuss in this lesson are merely that, just ideas. In fact, there's a multitude of information sources. I want to just plant some seeds in your mind, and other ideas may grow.
Let's start with open content. You may have heard of open source software. It's free software created by a programming community, software that anyone can take and use under certain conditions. Well, there's also open source content, or open content, sometimes known as copyleft, as opposed to copyright. The obvious example is Wikipedia, of course. Anyone can take and use on their website any article from Wikipedia with the correct attribution. Wikipedia articles are covered under the Creative Commons license, the most common such license, but there are other forms. And Wikipedia isn't the only wiki that has content you can use. In fact, Wikipedia's own list of wikis page contains dozens of different wikis, covering areas from music to genealogy, from mathematics to Star Wars fiction. Searching for the terms Creative Commons and Share Alike, perhaps in conjunction with general keywords related to your area of interest, can help you find more materials. You might also use the search term free content, of course. Another form of content you may be able to find for free is government-published materials, at least in the United States, where most government-published materials are in the public domain. Other countries will have other rules, of course. There are a few exceptions. Much of the post office's materials are not public domain. They don't want people printing their own stamps. And some materials that have been donated to the government may still be covered by copyright law. And works created by the National Technical Information Service or by non-governmental agencies working for the government may be copyright protected. But vast amounts of information are available free from the US government. And it's not just textual content, but audio and video too. Try some of these sites to find government materials. Or search for site:/gov and then your keywords. Another place to look for content is more traditional syndication services. Content syndication has actually been around for a long time. It predates the internet by many decades. Think of newspaper syndication, for instance. So there are a number of syndication services you might want to look into. And you may in fact find specialized services that focus on a particular industry, such as AKZO Media, which focuses on the real estate business. The problem, of course, is that you'll have to pay for this kind of content. In a similar vein are the advertorial companies, such as BrandPoint, which actually provide free content and usually quite high quality. Advertorials are articles that appear to be editorial content, but are actually advertisements. This is very common in the newspaper business and has been going on since at least the 1940s. These days, the advertorial companies distribute content for both newspapers and the web. The content is free because the people who want the advertorials distributed pay, in the hopes that the content gets picked up. If you do use advertorial content, I recommend that you either don't include links in the content pointing out of your sites, or if there are any links, they are no-follow links. This is a subject I talk about later in the lesson about the buying and selling of links. There's another form of content syndication, the article libraries. This used to be a popular link building technique. The idea is that people write articles, add a bio or about the author section at the bottom of the article, with a link in it of course, then distribute the articles through the article libraries. This form of link building isn't as effective as it used to be, but there's still lots of content available out on the libraries. Much of it is very low quality, but you can sometimes find decent stuff, though you'll probably want to check to make sure it's not already used on hundreds of other websites.
One thing may have occurred to you, especially if you've spent any time researching SEO. In some cases, using the content sources described in this lesson will result in your site containing what is known as duplicate content. Is that a problem? In some cases perhaps, but not as often as the SEO misinformation suggests. But I'll explain more in a lesson later in this section.